When we talk about successful schools, we usually picture dynamic classrooms, strong instructions, great teachers, but behind the scenes, what holds everything together is effective planning and procedures and operations. Without strong systems, even the best instructional strategies crumble, fall apart. Today, we're going to go through chapter 6 of the Breakthrough Principles, and we're going to focus on how school leaders build the backbone of high performing schools through tight planning and operational excellence. Um, as I look back on my 19 years of teaching, I see the message of chapter 6 of Breakthrough Principles in a lot of my successful schools. I've also been able to observe the converse of operational excellence, which was as much of a learning experience as watching and observing successful principals and leaders. The strong systems that are needed to build high-performing schools include tight planning and operational excellence. So, Desravines, Aquino, and Fenton argue that strong planning and operational systems allow schools to run smoothly by maximizing instructional time, removing barriers to learning. Chapter 6 makes a compelling case that planning and operations aren't just administrative tasks, they're equity tools. When leaders manage times, resources, and the people well, they create space for learning to flourish. Without these systems, instructional improvements can't take root. One of the quotes that I picked up from chapter 6 is, "Great schools are not born of charismatic leaders alone, but of leaders who create structures that support excellence." And I think back to two of my recent administrators that I've had. They exemplified different aspects of the quote. One of the best administrators was a middle school teacher, Miss Fleming. She's a middle-aged woman. She was down to earth, and she showed that she cared for her staff by the actions and the structures that she implemented. Fleming cared for the students first, and then she made sure that the teachers had all the supports in place to be able to have that planning and organizational requirements perspective needed to be great and to reach what the students needed. Another great leader was more charismatic. She had some charisma, Miss Barrington, but at the same time, she contained a grit to her. Anything that needed to be done was able to be done, and she put systems in place that allowed my elementary school that I was part of to be the top performing elementary campus in the district. And so I've been able to identify that quote, the charisma isn't just all that's needed, but those systems being in place from those two successful principals. Now, the chapter also outlines several systems that effective leaders put into place to support planning operations. These include master schedules. Master schedules are built for a purpose. They need to maximize instructional time. They need to be designed to meet the needs of the students first, not for adult preferences. Now, I was a tennis coach and I wanted my students to have tennis time, but that wasn't what was best for the campus's need. At a small rural campus. And so my principal walked through the master schedule with me and was able to show me how we needed to maximize the instructional time of those core courses. And it helped me be able to see how a master schedule aligns with priorities like ELA or math blocks for struggling learners. Blocking at that middle school campus, blocking math allowed our students to have a greater success rate on their standardized tests. Clear roles and responsibilities are another aspect. High performing leaders clearly define staff responsibilities. This helps avoid duplication of work and confusion, and it gets rid of the gaps in accountability. Staff who know what's coming towards them are able to handle what comes, and it reduces friction and it improves efficiency in the classroom and as a staff in general. Another aspect is strategic planning. Leaders establish annual goals, benchmarks, interim benchmarks, and then system for progress monitoring. Planning isn't a one-time event. It's a process. It's a living process, and it should adjust based on data. As we are data driven, as we look into the data of the map, into our assessments. We use MAP at my campus now. We can look and then adjust our instructions based on that. They also use backward planning, starting with desired outcomes, and then they work toward their goal through defined steps. Another aspect is they have operations that support instructions. Even small operational details matter, like transitions, being able to go from class to class in a timely manner, the direction of flow in the hallway, lunch lines, tech support, substitute systems. Those are all examples of things that really affect the culture and the climate of a campus. It can be the difference between having many fights in the day or having a campus that can run smoothly, where the teachers can teach and the students can learn. So some examples. The book offers several examples. One school in the chapter revised its master schedule to include a 90-minute ELA block and flexible intervention periods. Another example in the book had Friday operational huddles where the team worked to troubleshoot issues and prepare for the next week ahead. Those are just a couple examples that the book gave that show how leaders don't micromanage every detail, but they do design a system to empower the teachers and the leaders underneath them. So the principal should consistently be asking, is this helping or hindering the instruction of my staff? Are they able to grow and do what they need to? The next one is planning and operations need to be a leadership mindset. The chapter talks about the mindset behind strong planning and operations. Effective leaders are proactive, not reactive. They see operational excellence as tools to make instruction more powerful, not just something that they need to get through. It's also about service. Leaders can create operational systems in service of the students and the teachers. They ask, how do we remove any barriers? How do we free up the teacher's time so that they can focus on what's the most important? And then, as I read this chapter, it made me look at the kind of leader I eventually want to be. Have I been intentional in designing systems to support my instruction? I can say in my first years, I was not intentional. I was just flying by the seat of my pants. But in the more recent years, I have been intentional, and I want to be a leader who can help those new teachers get the jump start that they need, that I didn't get when I first became a teacher. Have I allowed chaos to creep in through unclear planning? Am I using data to drive continuous adjustments? Am I looking at the data and seeing what areas I need to update, to improve on, go back and reteach? Or am I relying on just, this is what I've done before, it's what I'm going to do again? So moving forward, I want to incorporate more backward planning cycles, and then I want to also streamline any school-wide routines to reduce wasted time and increase the kids' engagement. Planning and operations aren't extra work. They're kind of the core of what makes excellence possible. They're that infrastructure. So, to sum up, chapter 6 reminds us that visionary leadership isn't just about inspiring speeches, it's about smart, structured systems. When leaders prioritize planning and operations, they give their teams the tools to succeed. Great schools don't happen by accident, they're built on purpose with precision and with the students at the center of every operational decision.